Hello and welcome to Indy Talks, the monthly interview show brought to you by the Hudson Independent, the most trusted news source in the river towns. We have as our guest today the mayor of Dobbs Ferry, Bob McLoughlin, who has been in office now for about a year. And we look forward to seeing how Dobbs does, because the Hudson Independent is now going into expanding into Dobbs Ferry, both in terms of coverage and in terms of seeking advertising. So we look forward to a good relationship in the future.
Well, thanks for having me today, Barrett, and welcome to Dobbs Ferry.
Thank
We're glad to have you in town.
You were elected in November of 2017, correct? So
That's
it's
right.
been a little more than a year that you've been off. Are you having fun yet?
I'm having fun. It's it's a little bit different from what I had originally thought.
Oh, really?
I mean, I've really never been involved in politics.
Well, you're a political newbie.
Yes, I'm a new kid on the block.
Right.
But it's been great. We have a very involved board of trustees, and we have a lot of people in the village, former officials that have been very helpful, former mayors and trustees, and a lot of volunteers. So
Yeah.
it's a great town. We like to work together and get things done. So it's been a good experience.
Terrific. When I moved to this area, which was about 30 years ago, Dobbs was kind of the lesser of the villages around. You had Hastings, which is kind of a crunchy village to the south of you, and Irvington, which was considered a little more upscale in the middle. But over time, Dobbs has really kind of risen up in its ranking, if you will. The New York Times did an article about attributing that, part of that increase anyway, to the school system's adoption of the International Baccalaureate, which drew a different kind of buyer into the market. You're in the real estate business. Have you sensed that? Is that a big factor?
Oh yeah, it's made a huge difference. We have, I mean, the school system it's basically can sell a community, as we all know in real estate. We have our superintendent of schools, Lisa Brady, has done an absolutely terrific job, and the principals in Springhurst and middle school and high school were all terrific and doing a great job. I raised my kids in Dobbs, and they went through the schools, and they were in the baccalaureate program. And you know, it's a wonderful program. A lot of those credits are transferable to colleges.
Right.
And, you know, it makes a big difference to Dobbs.
Yeah.
I mean, Dobbs is, you know, it's a river town, quaint, charming river town with a nice little downtown. We have open spaces, parks. I mean, we have a brand new waterfront park that's been open for a few years that is really the jewel of Dobbs Ferry. And Willow Point, which is part of that park, is where Washington and his troops left for Yorktown in Virginia and victory in the Revolutionary War. So we have a lot of history, and we just approved a historical district on Belden Avenue in Dobbs Ferry. So it's a happening place. Great restaurants, great shops, a lot to do, and of course the schools are just terrific.
So is increasing tourism one of the goals that you have in mind?
It is, and we're working now to promote the village more and more, and bring people in. We have now a downtown improvement committee, which is working very hard. I mean, it just started about 6 months ago, but they're already doing things. I mean, we have a meeting coming up in February 6th, on the wires for downtown, and burying.
You're going to try to bury the wires down?
Well, you know, we're going to see what we can do.
That's an expensive proposition, isn't it?
It's a very expensive proposition, and not only for the village, but for the property owners. You know, we can pay for, you know, to bury the wires, and it does take time to do that, and it does cause a disruption downtown. On the other hand, the owners of the building have to pay for the connection coming in, so that's another expense that comes into play. So there's a lot of things that we have in place to look at this. And we also have a budget and finance committee that will look at the numbers and see, you know, if it's worthwhile.
They talking about a bond issue? Is that one of the ways you would fund something like that?
That's one way you could do it.
You're talking about millions of dollars, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be up there. It's not an easy number. It's gonna be a substantial number. We just went out for a bond a little over a year ago. Infrastructure, which was one of the things that when I came into office that, it's a priority we have to address. I think since the Great Recession, there wasn't a lot of money to maintain and keep up the infrastructure of the village. And it's not just Dobbs Ferry, it's all over, the county, the state, and so forth. So we have a lot to do there. The community center had to be closed down because structurally it was not sound. The fire department needed new equipment. We also needed to, for that new equipment, strengthen the support of the floor in the village hall where the fire department is to hold that equipment. The equipment's heavy.
That's right. Yeah, those are big trucks.
Those are big trucks. So there's things like that. We had now to put up a new pool. The pool had seen its last legs, and this was the last year the health department actually would let us keep it open. And there's other things with infrastructure. I mean, you have the roads, you have the sewers that are very old and need to be addressed as they're breaking down more and more often. And then infrastructure is also digital. You have to communicate, and you have to get information out very, very quickly. So it's a big job, and we have a lot to do, but we're hoping we can put a big dent in that this year and get it done.
Been a lot of development in the village, especially we have the Rivertown Square thing, which technically that's in Dobbs Ferry, correct?
That's correct, yes.
You've got condominiums that have gone up there, you've got a hotel space, big increase in the tax base anyway, presumably from a lot of that. But on the other hand, you have, I think you said earlier, you've got 40% of the village is nonprofit, owned by nonprofits. So that's a real challenge to uphold your tax base. How is that going? You've also got development downtown. You've got condominium units coming up just off Main Street.
Yeah, we've had a combination. I mean, you mentioned Rivertown Square, which is a huge development. It's right along the Sawmill River Parkway, Orange Street. A lot of great restaurants, some shopping, hotel, Hilton Hotel, a movie theater, a supermarket there, Brooklyn Market.
Right.
So it's a big development. It has helped us out as far as revenue. I mean, the tax base went from nothing, really.
Right.
I mean, it was an abandoned chemical site. So the good news is it was cleaned up, looks 100 times better than it did, 5-6 years ago. And it's good for the village. So we have a lot more people coming into Dobbs Ferry because of that. At the same time that we had that development going on, there was development going on within the downtown, which always causes disruption as far as traffic and things like that. We had 3 main buildings. We had the Oceana building, 75 Main Street, which is now being made into condominiums.
Right. Very high-end condominiums.
Very high-end and overlooking the river. I've been inside. They're absolutely beautiful. We have a new store that opened up on the first floor at Land, which beautiful store. I don't know if you ever had a chance to walk in there.
I haven't been in there yet, no.
Really, really nice. So we have that development, which, basically a block from the train station overlooking the Hudson River. We also have 6668 Main, which is a little further south on the east side of the street. And that just about finished now also. And then we have 78 Main Street, which is directly across on the east side from Oceana. So these buildings are now drawing to a close where they've been completed. We have created an ad hoc code committee to look at our code again for building in the downtown. One of the things I think with development is we had 3 pretty much major developments in the downtown at one time, which does cause disruption, you know, trucks coming in and out with materials, traffic concerns and things like that. But now that they're drawing to a close, things are really starting to look so much nicer. We have new restaurants opening up. We just had a Rare Bit is the name with his...
That's another David DeBarry.
David DeBarry, his 3rd restaurant. He's in partnership with Scott Broccoli. And
great name for a restaurateur.
Yeah, yeah. Perfect. That's a perfect one. And Scott was born and raised in Dobbs Ferry, and then went out to the West Coast and opened up restaurants out there, and now he's back in Dobbs Ferry and on Cedar Street. So we also have in the 78 Main Street, the 1st floor, Coffee Labs, which is a Tarrytown.
Yes, right. Very popular in Tarrytown.
Hugely popular, and great coffee, by the way. They've partnered with a craft beer. And what they're doing is they're opening up on the 1st floor there. In fact, I think it should be sometime this month at the beginning of February. So they've partnered with the craft beer, and they'll basically, you know, they have the whole day covered, pretty much 24 hours. So no matter what you need, that's the place to go. So there's things like that. So it's really a lot of good things happening in Dobbs Ferry, which is good to see. And you know, down on the waterfront, we have the Half Moon, which is a popular place. Hudson Social at the old train station there, that's been upgraded. And you know, through the help of we had created a local development corporation going back many years. Hartley Kinnett was the former mayor, had pulled that together, and I was actually on the budget committee at that time where we created this local development corporation, and allowed us to open up that business there at a place that was costing us, the village, every month money. Yeah. You know, to keep that operable, and now we're getting
bringing in tax revenue.
We're bringing in tax revenues. So these are the things we need to think outside the, what do they say, the 9 dots or the box, or however you want to say it. We need to do things like that, to different ways of bringing in revenue without increasing, you know, taxes for the homeowner.
One of the challenges that brings with it all that growth, though, is a demand for parking. So now that's a big issue in all of the river towns for a variety of reasons. What are you doing about parking?
Well, you know, all the river towns, as you say, have that problem. I mean, it's almost impossible to eliminate it completely. Everybody, you know, wants to park in front of the restaurant. Right. You know, unfortunately, there's only a few spots in front of the restaurant. Everybody else is going to have to walk a little bit. So we have a few different things. We have, right behind Village Hall is a parking lot that can be used in the evening for people to park and go out. And then we have, along the aqueduct, between Village Hall and Cedar Street, there's an additional parking lot there that people can park and go to the restaurants, either on Cedar or Main. And then we've just completed, it's 99 Cedar Street, which is at the bottom of Cedar. It's basically just a half a block from Main Street in Cedar. Where the old,
down near the Palisades, on the way to the Palisades building?
Yes, right down there. And there's basically 100 spots there that can be used for you know, anybody that doesn't. I'm a walker, so I don't mind parking down there and walking up the street. So that should open it up for us. We also have waterfront parking when we have big events where we actually bus people up from the waterfront and things like that. So one of the things we're going to look moving forward, we have through the Budget and Finance Committee and the Downtown Improvement Committee is putting in place a jitney service that maybe we start out within Dobbs and maybe try to expand it to the other river towns. Dobbs Ferry has 40% of the land is tax exempt. It's a big issue. We have to provide services for the tax exempt so that we get no
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 revenue.
revenue.
Yeah.
But they do have jitneys. You know, we have Children's Village, we have the Master School, we have Mercy College, um, St. Christopher's, Cabrini. And a lot of these tax exempts send their jitneys to the train station and back. And
Right, I know Mercy College does. They do
Yeah.
both at the Ardsley-on-Hudson train station as well as the Dobbs.
Right. They have more and more students coming in by trains, which is great. So we're working with them. We've talked to them, some initial conversations about what we'd like to do and what we'd like to see, you know, moving forward in the future. You know, things are changing so quickly, technology-wise. I mean, the day that I can sit in the back seat of the car and nobody is in front driving, it takes me where I want to go.
Right.
And I can either enjoy reading or doing some work or whatever in the back seat, or maybe taking a nap. I don't know.
It's going to take me a while to get over being nervous without anybody in the front seat.
So, but I don't think it's that far away. You know, they start to move fairly quickly, and one thing on top of another, and before you know it, you know, things are there.
Mhm.
You know, the guy that runs Tesla, I mean, he's talking about that tunnel out there
Right.
in California.
Elon Musk, right?
Yeah, Musk, and you know, he's a futuristic thinker,
Big thinker.
big thinker. He's got a lot more money than
And even Dobbs Ferry. Right?
than even Dobbs Ferry. So there's things like that we have to try to take advantage of as things move along.
Is that parking lot at the base of Cedar Street, is that just a flat lot?
Flat lot.
Right.
So
Do you have the same aversion to multi-story parking that they do in Irvington, for example?
you know, we had looked at that behind Village Hall. So here's the thing. I mean, first of all, the cost per parking space is very, very high.
For a multi-story.
For a multi-story. And then when you do a multi-story, you take spaces away from the first one that you're building on. You have to have entrances and exits and posts and things of that nature. So it's not you don't get as many spaces as you might think. And then of course you're blocking views.
Right.
And then of course you're building it mainly for nighttime. And at nighttime, you know, to walk to a restaurant, you're still going to have to walk.
Right.
And you're going to be parking in a garage, and if you go up above the first floor, even on the first floor, it's going to be dark.
Right.
So you have those things. So to spend a lot of money for that, you know, I'm not sure how much benefit you're going to get out of it.
And you have to make it handicap accessible.
That's right.
That factor is
Yeah.
expensive.
So, you know, there's things that you really have to study the whole situation before you make a huge, you know, financial commitment. I mean, back then I think it was $11 or $12 million to put another story.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Per story, 11 or 12
Yeah,
million
it
per
was
story?
it was a lot,
Yeah.
and that goes back about 7 or 8 years ago. At that.
Right. Another challenge that comes with growth is the increase in traffic. I mean, you look first at Rivertown Square and the intersection of Lawrence and the Sawmill River, which you talked about earlier. In the mornings, that can get pretty crowded. The traffic backs up all the way to Ashford Avenue in the morning at that light. Do you see any way to mitigate that?
Well, we're having them, there's a new owner now for Rivertown Square, Regency, which owns, I think they own 425 or 30 of these malls across the country. So we've asked them to take a look, is there anything we can do there? Rush hour is rush hour. I mean, it is a lot better now than it was.
Or when they were doing the construction?
Yeah, when they were doing the construction, and of course the Ardsley Bridge was down, which caused even more concerns.
Yeah.
Because you had to basically either avoid that and go through Hastings, which we're going to face that now with the Hastings Bridge. It's being redone over there. So
Yeah, it turns the Rivertown's into kind of an island unto itself.
yeah,
Separate from the rest of the county.
right. So the traffic, you know, has improved. We're still going to continue to work on it. You know, I don't think it's ever going to be to the point where it's going to be perfect, you know, there's going to be no traffic. And I don't think we'd want it where there's no traffic. I mean, you don't want to be in town by yourself. You know, you want other people to enjoy.
A lot of driverless cars going
Yes.
through.
But you know, with development, I mean, when I came into office, we had 5 basic things that I wanted to. Number one was safety of pedestrians, our students going to school, you know, drivers and things of that nature. And we've implemented quite a few things. I mean, the school, in front of the school on Broadway, was never made a school zone. So the speed there was 30 miles an hour. And when the speed's 30, that means people go 40. So, and it's a problem, you know, and especially when the kids are coming to and from school. Then you have the, you know, parents dropping kids off and multiple vehicles going different directions in the same area with kids crossing the street. So it was a real problem. But working together with the school, the PTSA Safe Routes, our traffic committee, Donna Cassell is our deputy mayor, Garyana Carico, who's the chair of that committee. We also had State Senator Andrew Stewart Cousins, Tom Abenanti, our assemblyman, and Mary Jane Shimsky and George get involved. And we finally got the state in one room with all of us there, and we went through that, and they actually made the change.
Because it's a state road and they control it, right?
That's right, they control the road, so we had to get it done through the state. But it was accomplished, and that's everybody pushing together to do that. And we've made some other changes. We had a couple of streets that were dangerous for parents going to and from school. We've increased our enforcement by the police department. And we've had a campaign to, you know, for safe driving. In fact, my next newsletter is going to address distracted driving.
Distracted driving.
Yeah, so, I mean, people are on the phone, texting, talking to, you know, someone next to them. It's a problem, and I think when you look at the numbers of how many accidents are now caused, so safety is was a huge concern that we're making a lot of inroads on. We also, as an early warning system, working with Lisa Brady, the school superintendent, the police department, and ourselves as officials, have an early warning system so that, you know, when the police make a decision to either shut down the schools, you know, maybe because of the weather, we're going to close. If it's going to be bad weather, dangerous road conditions, we get the word out. Lisa Brady has a system that can go out.
Sort of a reverse 911?
Sort of a reverse, and she can notify everybody in the village. So not only the public schools, but, you know, the private schools, nurseries, daycare centers, so on and so forth. So it goes out almost immediately. Right. So we all know what the decision is almost at the same time,
right,
which has been great. Second thing is financial strength. We want to make sure that we keep, you know, even before the 2% tax cap came into effect, we had put that in place in Dobbs Ferry. So, you know, we've done it even longer than what the state had mandated. I know the governor wants to continue that, and I know Senator Cousins also wants to continue that. So we have to, you know, be aware of that moving forward. Right. The thing is with the 2% tax cap, if you're raising salaries at 2.5%, you have to find the revenue somewhere else. Right. So there's that infrastructure. You know, we talked about communications. We're doing everything to make things more transparent, communicate better, more often, you know, with the website, email, Facebook, and I'm even on Twitter. Right. Some of the other mayors said you have to be on Twitter to get emergency information out. So we also do that.
Right. Getting back to, well, on the subject of taxes, you had the reassessment that we had, the Greenberg-wide reassessment a couple of years ago.
Right.
And then on top of that, we have the tax Trump bill, which took away all but 10% of the SALT deductions. Has that had an impact on Dobbs?
It has had an impact, and in the real estate business itself, it has had an impact. You get the properties that are, up there, over, 750,000 to $1 million and up, are now,
Sitting on the market a while.
Yeah, they're sitting for a while, and so it's had a big impact on us. I'm not sure at this point how long that's, going to be in place. The upper middle seems to be okay at this point, but the higher end ones, what that could present us with is grievances to have taxes reduced, and so that's a reduction in revenue for us. So we're going to have to be
Puts more
very
of a squeeze on the budget.
much more of a squeeze. We're already seeing that in the next year's budget. We already see that there's going to be grievances that have been approved that are going to come through.
One more question regarding traffic. As you know, there is a movement to have a bicycle route going from Ossining all the way down to Hastings, which would put a squeeze on an already limited amount of room on Broadway. How does that look to work in Dobbs?
Well, we had a strong team, Deputy Mayor Donna Cassell on the Traffic Committee, Rob Barron, and a few others that really, Patty Steinschneider, looked at that. We were completely supportive of it. We gave them the input. We had a lot of people come out to the meetings and give input on it. We'd like to see that implemented at some point in the future. The issue is taking spaces off Broadway.
Right.
We have spots, and so do the other villages, where, you're going to have to take all that parking off, which could be problematic for the downtowns. So, we're going to have to take a look at that as we move forward in the future.
Right. Related to the tax situation again, the housing market is below $1 million. Does that seem to be holding up okay?
That seems to be okay. It's a little bit slower because we had a very good run there for a while. But the ones over that are sitting, you can see longer and longer on the market. So, and that's tax-wise, revenue-wise, that's going to have an impact on us going forward.
All right, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You've got all these new restaurants opening up in Dobbs Ferry. What's your favorite?
I love all food. And I love all of the restaurants. Everybody has their specialties, and so I hate to be partial from one to the other. I grew up with 3 brothers, right? And I made sure I got to the table early.
They were older brothers?
2 were older, 1 was younger, but the youngest one was the biggest of all of them. So I made sure I got there early and eat, but I enjoy all of the restaurants in Dobbs. We have some really great restaurants. Some of the, like Sam's has been there for years and years and years. Double Cheese is, for a burger and to watch a game is great, and the beer.
Double Days, right?
Double Days. Scaramella's there and by the bridge, and you have the newer ones. You have the Parlor and
the Cookery.
And
so you do them all?
I do them all. Yeah.
You ever home for dinner? Or?
Once in a while. Since I became mayor, it's been a little tougher to get home a lot of nights, but
Great. Sure.
thanks for having me, Barry. I appreciate it.